Hi there. It's another beautiful doodle session. It's a good to have you back. We are focusing today on Q2 episode 9 and it's captioned The Foundation of God's Government. Let's dive right in. If you recall, one of the takeaways from last week's study is that there are two sanctuaries, the original copy in heaven and the scaled replica built by Moses. Everything about the sanctuary built by Moses was made to copy the sanctuary in heaven in structure, decoration, and rituals. One of such is the content and placement of the Ark of Covenant. In Exodus 25, verse 16, God specifically instructs Moses to place the two tablets of stone containing the law of God, his commandments, inside the Ark of Covenant. And it was not until Revelation 11:19 that we see why. See, just like the principle of the structure, the furniture, and the rituals in the earthly sanctuary was a scaled copy of the original in heaven, the content and placement of the Ark of Covenant was not different. It is safe to conclude that the Ark John saw in the heavenly sanctuary also contained the original copy of the laws of God. The context of this revelation makes it even more interesting. In the first 18 verses of Revelation 11, the two witnesses, you recall, the Word of God in the Old and New Testament, they were under severe attack. They prophesied in sackcloth and were even killed at some point. Then in verse 19, God shows John the Ark of Covenant, by inference, containing the law of God comfortably seated in the heavenly sanctuary. Question is, was that a coincidence? If the Ark of Covenant containing the law of God is currently resting in the most holy place in the heavenly sanctuary, what is the implication of that? Why do you think God specifically revealed this aspect to John? He didn't have to. Actually, if you remove verse 19 from Revelation 11, it would not lose its meaning. So why show him that? What do you think?
Think of it this way. If you signed a business contract with a company, say Company X, the contract, like any other, will have terms of engagement agreed on by both parties. Let's say X has the original copy and you have a photocopy of the contract. If you went ahead to connive with most of the employees to make changes, mutilate, or update the terms of engagement in your photocopy, do you think that that has any valid legal effect on the original? Your guess is as good as mine. The only binding legal document remains the original copy of the contract. Change yours all you care. The original copy remains intact and still binding on all parties. The presence of the law of God in the most holy place in the heavenly sanctuary is yet another confirmation that the laws of God are immutable and binding on all humanity, irrespective of place, time, or culture. And I mean all of it. Matthew 5:17. We can choose to alter the laws of God here all we care. It does not affect the original copy in heaven. And if we will be judged by these same laws of his government, we might as well fall in line. In this law is the command, thou shalt not kill, just like there is, thou shalt not commit adultery. But there is something about the fourth commandment that is different. Beyond just stipulating a course of action to either conform to or not like the other laws, it, 1, acknowledges God as the creator, Exodus 20, verse 11, meaning the source and sustainer of all life, a title that makes him supreme and deserving of our worship. This stance is reiterated by the first angel's message in Revelation 14:6-11, and it reads, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him who made the heaven and the earth and sea and spring of waters." It's a call to worship God because he is the creator.
That's a good point. But it also shares with us God's timeline with respect to his creation work. Worked for 6 days, rested on the seventh, blessed the seventh, and made it holy. This is why choosing just any other day as a Sabbath would not be the same, regardless of our sincerity. Can you think of any account in the Bible when God gave specific instructions on what He wanted or how He wanted it, and the consequences of either conforming or not? Well, I might just have a list. The first in that list will be Aaron and his sons Nadab and Abihu, who also served as priests in the earthly sanctuary. Now, God left them very specific instructions with respect to the sanctuary rituals, one of which was simple and clear: do not bring in strange fire. The elites of our day would have strongly argued that that didn't make any sense, and maybe even tagged it a form of abuse or discrimination. Fire, whether within or without, has the same chemistry. And as sane and logical as these arguments are, they do not constitute worship that is acceptable to God. Nadab and Abihu told this line of thinking disregarding God's express command, and it did not end well for them. Can you think of any other cases?
Other similar accounts in the Bible include the rejection of Cain's sacrifice and the rejection of Saul as king, each preceded by seeming obedience, but in defiance of God's preferred protocol. In each case, God rejected their acts of worship despite their sincerity because they flouted his predefined protocols and patterns of worship. To Cain, he says, "If you do what is right, will you not be accepted?" And to Saul, Samuel says, "Obedience is better than sacrifice." Point is, it is God's prerogative to decide how we worship him. We don't get to pick and choose, we just obey. Number three, so when we in obedience observe the Sabbath following God's counsel and timeline here, we actively acknowledge him as our creator, deserving of our worship, and anything short of this will be a sincere disobedience, but a disobedience nevertheless. Please kindly understand this is not intended to attack anyone, but to share the truth as is. Number four, there is an even more serious issue here. God identifies the fourth commandment as a sign or seal of his authority. Exodus 31:13 and Ezekiel 20, verse 12 and 20. Meaning, acknowledging it will be acknowledging his authority, but disregarding it will be giving the honor due him to someone else. It is that serious. So, for an earthly power to seek to change the day of worship, as in Daniel 7:25 and Revelation 13:5, from the seventh day Sabbath, as approved by God Himself, to any other day, is an attempt to usurp divine authority at the most basic level possible. The real issue is we all have to choose. We can either choose to obey God or man, hopefully the former, but if the latter, it will be tantamount to transferring allegiance due God to whoever is behind the change. On this point, then, is the focus of the final conflict over true and false worship and over receiving the seal of God or the mark of the beast. Exodus 31:13 and Ezekiel 20:12 and 20. This is how you either receive the seal of God or the mark of the beast. It's not a computer chip, it is an issue of allegiance and worship. Do not expect the devil to come write a number on people's foreheads and hands to signify they have received the mark of the beast. He is smarter than that.
That's quite interesting. Thank you for the detailed explanation. So, it means it's no coincidence that Revelation identifies the people who are faithful to God as those who keep the commandments of God. If these laws were indeed abolished and not binding, there would not be the criteria used to identify the faithful against whom the dragon went to make war in Revelation 12 verse 17. There must be something about the laws of God that really irritates the adversary this much. What to remember thus far? 1. Beyond all the noise and distractions, the real issue in this great controversy has always been allegiance expressed in worship. By creation and redemption, God has rightfully earned our allegiance and deserving of our worship. 2. Being a God of details, He has clearly defined specific patterns and protocols concerning when we worship Him and how we do that. Worship acceptable to God, therefore, is when we sincerely, in obedience, follow His laid down protocols and patterns. Number 3. The experiences of Cain, Nadab and Abihu, and Saul in the Bible very clearly show us that deviating from God's laid down protocols and patterns does not validate the act, regardless of our sincerity. Number 4. When we, in obedience, follow these laid down protocols and patterns, we profess our allegiance to God. On the other hand, changing any of these will be tantamount to usurping God's authority and arrogating the allegiance to God to some other authority. And this is the reason why the Sabbath cannot be just any other day rather than the seventh day as ordained by God. Yes, it is that serious. And that's it for our session today. Thank you for joining in. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell for alerts of the next clip. It's your Sabbath Doodle, doodling out. I'll see you next Sabbath.